Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
What's up, Visionaries? Welcome to episode 146 of Velen's Chosen. If you are a competitive player, an arena specialist, a deck building visionary, or you just want to have a little bit of fun, we're back to the regular grindstone this week with Velen's Chosen podcast. I'm your host, Rob May, coming in hot on July 1st in Japan, but it is actually June, the final day of June, which I forgot if it had 30 or 31 days. In fact, it has 30. Baby. So it is June 30th in the evening times of United States and Canada region, aka North and South America. But thank you guys for joining in and tuning into the episode. We got Grant from Texas. What's up, Grant?
Hey, guys.
And we got Eve, who I was very efficiently stalling for time for, back on the mic. What's up, Eve?
Well, what's the use if you're going to tell everybody you needed to stall?
It's so that I don't sound like I'm an insulting thing.
Ramble?
I don't know. Somebody that can't speak. I can't. All words escape me. Illiterate human.
Incoherent thought.
Something like that. Yeah.
Non-cogent thing.
I mean, they already know I have
grab a drink at the
incoherence
last
when
moment.
speaking. That's why I do podcasting. So, this week, guys, we're back to the regular flavor of the show. Last week was quite a different feel and an emotion that we had not yet done, and we got a lot of positive feedback, so really appreciate those who have fed that to us. And we actually have an iTunes review this week that I'll be reading at the bottom of the show to thank us for it. And I know that this week we are ready to, as they say, keep it really light, as they say on Rock. What was it? School of
what
Rock.
Did they say?
School of Rock, when he's telling Zach to go on the hi-hat. He's like,
oh, right.
Now do that. The same thing. Just type it on the hi-hat, but really light.
I love that movie.
Oh, man, that movie's great. Speaking of, we have a Patreon thing at the top of the show from one of our patrons requesting the Shroom Brewer, which has the attack that I actually can't remember, but I can do the intro. Or I'm sorry, I know the attack one. I don't know the intro, which is the bubbly. I can't remember the other one. It's when he attacks.
Is
right?
it Bubblies and Yummies?
That's it. Bubblies and Yummies.
Oh my gosh, Robbie, you're so good at
That's
that.
good. That's a good one. That's
like
good.
exactly like the card.
Yeah,
That's a 9 out of 10.
When you have your favorite card, you kind of practice in the shower. So, and I'm actually about half and half on the truth on that one because I have done it before in the shower, just not regularly.
Who hasn't?
So let's go. Who hasn't? Oh gosh, that's not a mental image you guys need. Let's go to Hearthstone news. If I can find the soundbite for the live stream.
Extra. Read all about it.
Quick, kid. I ain't got all day.
There. See.
All right. The Tavern Brawlies. A little less friendly game of chess. I have not played this yet, so I'm going to turn it to you guys.
Okay, so you remember the chess match from Medivh's Tower?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that, except for you get to put a couple of cards in.
6 to be exact.
6 cards. So I actually have it down here. Yeah. Build a deck using 6 cards. No duplicates are allowed. And also there were a bunch of cards that were banned.
Whoa.
Like when you went
Yes.
into your collection manager, if you looked at all of your cards, apparently the Death Knight hero Garrosh is
Mhm.
banned from this.
All the
Do you
Death Knights are banned.
All of the Death Knights are banned.
Mhm.
Oh, can you even imagine Thralls? Thralls would be really good.
Yeah,
Oh,
Thralls would be
geez.
game over
Yeah,
at
that
turn
would
5.
be
Easy.
very much bad.
Well, it's not that they were banned. That's the interesting thing is that they had a UI,
To
little red
display the
banner
ban.
across the displayed band, which makes me wonder if that's sort of like a teaser for maybe tournament mode and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's already in the
It
client.
could even be
Oh,
just like features for innkeepers, whether it's a tournament or not, letting people ban specific cards and enable them to make interesting decisions to have fun with their own brawls as an innkeeper. And furthermore, what I would project, I did hear a lot about this in the Discord when I was skimming this week, and I thought that was a really interesting thing. But I think that when people think, they're like, well, this could be because they're going to show this as a UI teaser or test for banning decks. When I feel like this thing that they have coded for cards is specifically going to be a different area of code than something that you would have on the deck area. They might have some layers of overlap, but personally, if you're thinking like deck construction and deck banning, I don't think this is something they're really toying with right here. This is maybe more of the card removals. Maybe in the future they just would like ban cards. Maybe this is something that they're potentially open to in the future, is banning really, really powerful cards for tournament play, but not for ladder play. I don't know. That could be a thing.
Either way, I think it's cool that they're kind of teasing out that that's something that they're considering doing, and that's how it's going to look.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
I think that it's fun that for those of us who are paying attention, that they just kind of just did that quietly and got to kind of get a tidbit of foreknowledge, if you will.
Now, Eve had a little bit of something in the pre-show that we were talking about with regards to gifting as well.
Yeah, there was somebody who tagged me in a tweet where they had a kind of I wouldn't want to say raffle, but like a giveaway, right? Where their listeners, they were going to give away card packs to them. But then when they friended them and tried to give them the pack, they had a notice that said you can't give people gifts until after 7 days. Like, you have to know this person for 7 days before you can gift them anything. And it was like, he felt really bad because he had this contest and he said he was going to give the people who won them the packs, and then he couldn't give them the packs. He had to wait a week. So that's kind of, I was wondering if this is a new,
Because we did a giveaway for Omnic Lab a couple weeks ago, or maybe about 2 months ago, and granted, 2 of the people that won were already on my friends list, but somebody I had to add, and I couldn't send it to them because of a different reason. And then there was another person I added, and I was able to just, add and send it right away. But there is something interesting. There's a guy that doesn't listen and doesn't play Hearthstone, so I won't give away his name, but he lives in New Zealand. And because of international gambling restrictions and rules and giveaways and contests within certain areas, aka Montreal is also, I believe, one of these areas. It's either Montreal or Toronto. You are outside of the ability to get anything via a contest. So if you want to gift something, that feature is not available to you to do that.
Interesting.
And it could be because of the region. It could be where you're at and your IP address. I don't know how they've checked it, but if you want to gift and do a giveaway, you have to say the disclaimer that if you're in certain regions outside of the US and North America or South America, then you are not eligible to participate in this.
Yeah, in Canada, Quebec always has kind of like weird rules that are different from the rest of the provinces.
Quebec, that's it. I'm sorry. It's not Montreal. It's the whole province, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever we have prizes too, there's usually a disclaimer on the problem that's like, except Quebec.
Right.
Oh, it's no fun to live in Quebec, apparently.
They're always trying to leave, Grant. You know how many times they've tried to leave Canada?
It's like California.
Really?
Yeah. I don't feel any pity.
Are they more French than the rest of the provinces?
Yes.
Actually, there's a long time listener.
There's a lot of French-speaking people there, is what I'm saying.
Eve, you remember Vincent, right? Vincent P. He helped us out with our website really early on. He's from Montreal, and he's a great guy. He speaks fluent French. Holy cow! He's trying to teach us.
We want you to
French
stay,
back then.
Vincent. Please stay. Stop
Please
trying
stay
to
in
leave.
Montreal. Be your Montreal self. Be your
Canadian
bad
with
self.
us.
Be your best Quebec citizen.
Be your most Quebec version of yourself. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm going to say it either way.
No shade on French people or French Canadian people. I hope you're not taking my words that way.
There is no shade on any French people except for Patrick, because he can take it. And that is an inside joke with Instance listeners from long time, but Scott Johnson.
It's just a fact that there's more French-speaking people there than like in other places in Canada.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's one more thing of news that we were talking in the pre-show. I just wanted to insert here. Taverns of Time ends July 2nd. And we wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about the amazingness that was these Taverns of Time temporary quests, which was the features of including dust and making the quests just a bit different as far as like playing and not necessarily restricting yourself to certain things, but just like drawing cards or playing turns or, you know, things of this nature. But Eva, this was your idea, so I'm gonna let you kick this concept out as to keeping the quests.
Yeah, I was just saying before in the pre-show that it's nice to be able to just be rewarded for logging in and playing and not having your play have to kind of be restricted to a certain way. And a lot of the times I haven't even tried to finish my quests because I just want to get on and play the way that I want to play. And if it says you have to play this deck or this class or this many, you know, of a card or this many spells or this many one-cost minions, and of course your favorite deck is like an even, you know, deck, so you can't even play the one-cost minions. So it's like this kind of thing where it's you just log on, and in the course of playing Hearthstone, whichever way you want to play it, you complete your quests. Is really nice. It just rewards people for playing, for logging in and playing, and that's a lot friendlier and more relaxed.
Yeah,
than,
it's the dual aspect.
Okay, I got to
of
read my
playing
quests and find out what I have to do and how I have to play.
Right.
And also the rewards in Dust and Gold.
It's like a 2 for 2, right?
Yeah.
It's like the convenience factor's over 9,000. On top of that, it's like, well, you may not need this gold, or you may be banking it, or you may be spending it fruitlessly, but you're going to be getting some sweet dust as a side note. So that's always super nice.
And I mean, they're always asking, like, is this fun, right? This is what Blizzard asks themselves when they put a new thing into the game. Is this fun? Those quests that we had before were not fun. Like, they maybe had the idea of, if we say play 50 Murlocs, then maybe somebody is going to find a new way that is fun that they never tried before, and we'll be like directing them to try new classes that they've never tried before.
Yeah.
But it just ended up being kind of stressful, especially for the people that don't have like a deck for every class and are trying to cobble something together to like get their quest done. It just ended up being kind of pressure and stress instead of just, I'm going to log on to Hearthstone, play whatever I want to play, whatever I feel like playing, and I'll get rewarded, which is so much better. Blizzard, please keep this.
Great. Any more thoughts on this?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I was thinking about it just the other day, how when I log into Hearthstone, since the Taverns of Time started, I don't look at it and go, okay, I gotta do this quest to get my gold for the day. You know, it's just like I just play, and it's like, oh, I just have to play 25 cards, sweet, and I go play whatever I want. Or, oh, sweet, I just have to take 25 turns or whatever. Or 3 dragons. I got a deck somewhere that runs 3 dragons. You know what I mean? And then re-rolling them is awesome. I mean, I almost every time I re-roll, I get up. I mean, starting at 60 gold and 60 dust, that's great to start with. But like getting the 80s and the 100s is easy. And so I've loved it. Like I felt like my dust and gold count has gone up dramatically since it started. Considering like remembering back in the day with the old quests, you know, win 5 games to get like 3 gold, you know,
Back in our day.
Back in our day, you had to win games and walking uphill in the snow barefoot with the paper sack with your lunch that was 3 days old, you know,
uphill
and play
both ways
Hearthstone.
To school.
Yeah, because you walk uphill both ways. So you know,
yeah, the having to win really sucked. We'd been asking for a while to just be like, just play, just make it play.
Yes.
Because then you feel awful if you spend a certain amount of time playing Hearthstone and don't get anything for it because you didn't win, and you already feel bad because you haven't been winning, and now you feel bad because you didn't get your quests done. I mean, like, yeah.
I want to weigh in a little bit on a different note and kind of get your guys' thoughts here, because anytime we make a change in the questing system like this, I feel like my brain goes directly to what are the impacts of them doing this, rather than how do I feel viscerally about this and how am I enjoying this. You know what I mean? I feel like my brain just naturally goes beyond it, and I don't know if that's because I've kind of lost the game's kind of lost the luster a little bit more than for most people than it has for me. So it could be that, but I mean, right now at least I feel like when I'm looking at this change that they made to the ladder system, I say, okay, so this looks like a test to me, and also just a nice perk for playing the game and getting people back in, right? They always have some sort of seasonal thing that doesn't happen, that is enough to bring people that normally would be playing, but are kind of bored or want to do something different, like card nerfs or something like that. They kind of just bring the back in. They issue the new carrot on the stick to bring you back, right? So that overall event mixed with the arena ticket and the arena games, I feel like that's like one big carrot. But then there are like all of these little sub things under there. And I feel like if they're going to keep this style of thing, they need to revert a little bit of the amazingness that is this system by like removing the dust or probably just removing the dust from this or reducing it a lot, because it is a lot of perks to be giving away for free. It's a lot.
Well,
Over an extended time,
the
especially.
one thing is, though, that new players entering the game still have quite a lot of uphill grind to get to be able to catch up to everybody.
Yes, but again, I'm emphasizing that this is a seasonal thing or a non-permanent thing, that you have to realize that there are some things that are really good for everyone, and there are some things that you have to take away for it to be feeling new. Otherwise, if they do something like this in the future, and it's just like that's one entire aspect of the game they can't touch anymore.
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. I would be fine if it was just gold, honestly.
It's like the seasonal tacos at Taco Bell. Like, ain't nobody want a cheesy gordita crunch unless it's like seasonal, and then everybody flips out about it. Or the McRib at McDonald's, like, because it's only at like
I think
one
the
time
pumpkin
period.
spice latte would
Pumpkin spice
probably
latte,
be
Shamrock Shakes. I know
iconic
Shamrock Shakes was something big
example.
when I was in high school.
Shamrock Shakes.
High school
I love
and
Shamrock
college.
Shakes.
Shamrock
Oh,
Shakes,
that's so good.
Spearmint flavored shakes. Oh.
spoiler alert, Shamrock Shakes aren't as good as they sound if they're always there.
Right, this is true.
It's
It's
the
like
way
if
it
you
is.
take
Spice latte
Wrigley's
as well.
spearmint gum and you mix it with soft serve vanilla ice cream. That's what a Shamrock
and you
Shake is,
dump
for those
a
of you who don't know.
whole bucket more of sugar than it needs to have. That's what it is.
And
just
anyways,
the
keep
gold
going.
then. Can we
So
do
anyways,
that?
just
Is
the
that
gold
okay?
is kind of the first idea. The next idea that I was thinking is that I think that the features of relisting a lot of these tags is potentially needed for the game long term. And again, I'm not like making claim on the game that this is bad. I'm just saying this is better. There's a very distinct difference with talking about the changes that you want to be in Hearthstone that is like, this is bad, this needs to change now because it's bad. Or this is something that we have in the game that's helpful. Let's see if we can make it better. And if you're basically making it so that to do quests requires you to play the game, and having a carrot to play the game is the initial idea, right? That making it so that people feel like they can play the game for free, at least a little bit on the side, and not dump all of their life savings the second a expansion releases. That's fine. And then also the other side is that you want to make both regular, casual, and seasonal players be able to play the game they want to play, and not like putting them into a frame of like, you should probably play this, and if you don't, then you don't get any benefit, but if you do, then here's like a little carrot you can go chase. And it's like, look, pal, if I'm a casual player, I'm a seasonal player, I don't even have the cards to play that, and I've rerolled this quest 4 times. And like that's something that you have to think about. Your casual player base, your irregular playing, your regular players on the other side still think that it's at the worst inconvenient, because it's like they have to spend partially of their regular gaming experience to do something they don't want to do, because it feels like if they're not going to finish that quest, then they're not going to be able to kind of min-max the way they want to. And if you're going to min-max, you might as well min-max like your cards and your game and just enjoying what you want to min-max, and not necessarily min-maxing what Blizzard is telling you to do by virtue of a carrot. And this is like I don't know, this is kind of like one of those weird slopes, because other games do this in different ways, but I feel like Hearthstone players complain about it more than any other thing. Because like Heroes of the Storm have something like this where it's like, play a specialist hero, play a tank hero 3 games, or win 2 games with an assassin. And it's like, well, I'm a tank player, I don't want to play an assassin, or I want to play support, or I'm an assassin player, I don't want to heal. Screw that business.
I think initially the idea was to try and get people a little bit out of their comfort zone so they might try something new, because they might find that they had more fun than they thought. And then suddenly like they widen their horizons instead of just like sticking with the thing that they want to do. But if you know anything about gamers, we just want to do what we want to do. Like,
yeah, and I feel like that's something that a lot of games just haven't really done. You know, maybe this is a test case. It's like, well, why don't we just why don't we give people something that they can do where they're just rewarded for playing the game? And so Blizzard's ideal in this was actually already in the game and is never talked about that often. Never often is not in the same sentence. Sorry, guys. It's something that is not often spoken about, which is the win 3 games, earn 10 gold. The reward for playing the game. It's minimal, but it's there.
Right.
And you can cap it at 1,000, right?
100.
No, 100 per day per 24 hour
Okay, so
period.
100 times 3, or sorry, 100 divided by 10 is 10 times 3 is
win
30.
30
so you have
games.
to win 30 games.
Which is a lot of games. That's
In
a
a
Win
lot.
day.
30. That means if you're going
Win 30.
50-50 in a day, you have to play 60 games. So the cap is forgiving, but the reward is not as big as you might think. Like playing the game to win 3 or win 10 games or 9 games just to get like 30 gold is still not a whole lot. So
It's just like, here, have a little something. You want a game, here, have a little something. It's not something people plan on. It's not something people grind for. Like, it's not worth it, definitely, at all.
But anyways, I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a peek behind what I'm thinking in this, and I'm not sure if you wanted to comment further, but I feel like
A
philosophically...
peek behind the curtain, Rob?
Yes, not what you're wanting to say, Eve. We had a little pre-show issue. I'm just kidding. This is a really, really bad taste joke that somebody had sent us this week that was like, we should say it on the show. It's like Grant and I were immediately like, we should not.
Yes.
So anyways,
let's go on to the
let's go on to the
letter.
next thing. Yeah. Grant, you have it.
Yeah, so last week we were kind of bemoaning the fact of, oh crap, I'm at rank 4 and I'm playing high legend players, and Hearthstone was just reticent. They weren't saying anything. There was nothing going on, and some people were saying, on the one hand, well, maybe that's just the way they'd intended it. Other people were saying, no, this must be something new that they implemented and just didn't tell anybody. Well, we finally heard back from it. It was probably, I think, even the next day after we published our episode last week.
I think so.
Yeah.
That we heard back from them, and they said basically, yeah, they're aware of it now. They're going to try and fix it. Let me see if I can paraphrase it here a minute. I have it in the link here.
So to give you a brief synopsis of what it is while Grant's looking it up is that you would have players rank 5 to rank 1 matching against legend players for no weird reason.
And not just legend rank players, but people in upper top 200 high legend players, like
legend,
like triple digit legend, not quadruple digit legend. So basically, the long and the short of it is, people were losing if you played against. Let's say I'm a rank 4 player playing against a legend player. If the legend player beats me, they get very little reward for it. If they lose to me, their rank gets tanked real fast, and
you have to win more than 3 games to earn it back in a row.
Right, and that was really the big problem with the whole setup, is it was really affecting very competitive players. Basically, what they're going to do is I'm going to quote, to help improve the legend rank experience, we are changing how legend players get matched against non-legend players starting with July ranked season play. So tomorrow for us, and already probably, I guess tomorrow for Rob
It's the
too.
same. It's on the US rollover, so it's still,
And they basically kind of said, with that change, legend players will have to lose significantly more games before matching against a non-legend player. That's kind of the important quote there. Basically what it means is, like, if you're in legend, you have to have kind of a losing streak before they would match you up against a non-legend ranked player, which is good. And the truth of the matter is if you're somebody said it in our Discord, I don't remember who it was, that if you're like in a number rank, like rank 3, rank 4, rank 2, and you're getting consistently matched against legend players, that means that you play at a high skill cap, meaning your MMR is equivalent to a legend player, even though you may not have the orange crystal next to your name. So in a way, it's sort of a back way of complimenting you, if you think about it that way. But it doesn't feel good when you know that legend players, especially if they're in the thousands of legend, they're not really having anything to lose. And you've been grinding, and you're trying to climb up to the orange crystal, and you feel like the legend players are like the guard to that place that's like a super boss that you have to beat, as opposed to just a mere mortal in the number ranks. So it'll be cool to see what they do. I hope that I don't see, you know, I was seeing legend players probably every other game or multiple games in a row today, and I played a lot today, and it was just kind of like, man, I'm not worried about it because they're
It's gonna be fixed.
it's going to be fixed. But I mean, and for me, because I wasn't seeing like, rank 156 legend, I wasn't really worried about it. I view them more on my tier of play, so it wasn't stressing me out. But like,
There's a lot
about
of
2
people
weeks
with ladder
ago,
anxiety that's not good for their
right?
play at
So
all.
it'll be fixed. I'm sure that they said they'll put out more details later. So
Mm.
they're talking about it, which I guess talking about it is a good thing because I think the community was starting to get kind of uptight about it in a pretty bad way. Because in my opinion, if they have that kind of a kind of a system for high tier play, it's only a matter of time before people start quitting. You know, it's like, no,
Yeah.
I can't justify playing
That's
this
very
much
fair.
to get nothing done. Like, we talk about Hearthstone rewards, uh, and how like this is one of those games like you have to be good at it for it your fruit of your labors to show. You actually have to be actually good. And for
Well, it's
people
the
who are actually
HCT, right? Like that's the stressful part.
right. Well, for people who are actually good at it, demonstrably so, to work really hard to get nothing, that is like untenable. Not just like untenable, it is untenable. And the game will die on the vine if that kind of a thing progresses, because when that word gets around, the pros aren't playing this anymore, nobody's playing it because the system is just not working, then eventually it'll trickle down to the people who play casual, like, oh yeah, well, this is a broken game. I have people that say, oh, this game's dead. They think it's dead because of
Confound it, Watson.
hearsay.
40 million players. Damn it. It's broken and no one's playing it.
Well, I had to laugh the other day, like sidebar. Like I was talking to some of my high school students the other day, and they're like, "Do you play Fortnite?" And I said, "No, I don't really have time. I like playing Overwatch." Oh, that game's dead. And I'm like, Overwatch is not dead.
I was not aware of this.
$20 million buy-in for Overwatch League. You call that a dead game? Well, but the point is that hearsay and the memes get trickled down, and what becomes like a joke or a meme starts becoming truth. You know what I mean? And it's easy to refute if you know the facts, but like anything else, a lie can get around the world before the truth has time to put its boots on, so to speak, as the quote goes. So if Hearthstone becomes too obviously, oh, this game's broken, their ladding system is terrible, you work really hard for nothing, there's no point in playing it, it's too expensive, you'll never build a card collection, blah blah blah, on the I don't know what the word is, the hype, the talking points go, if you will, then eventually it'll hit their bottom line, and the game will slowly fade away, which we don't want. So I'm glad that they're talking to us about it and they're going to do something about it. So,
well, on the one hand, I think they had a point, right? They should be listened to. But on the other hand, if you do want to make your living off of a game, then you should probably be very careful about how you talk about it. Like Frodan is always trying to jump in there and calm people down because he makes a living off of being an announcer, off of being a personality with this game, and it's in his best interest for it to be healthy and to stay around for a long time.
Right.
And the pros should also feel that way as well.
Right.
They had a legitimate point. If you need HCT points to get into tournaments and it's really, really difficult for you to do so with this current ladder, I can see how they would be angry. But kind of the way that you go about getting your point across, you should be careful, especially if you want this game to continue existing.
I mean, on the one hand, you have to, like Eve said, I feel like you don't want to go to a place where it becomes an echo chamber for your opinion.
Sure.
I think that if you have a legitimate reason to be upset, then I feel like it's okay to be and to feel upset, to feel cheated, to feel disappointed, depression. Like, it's okay to feel things. But I feel like you need to be a little bit more tactful with how you communicate how you're feeling, rather than saying, I'm on a witch hunt, here's my pitchfork and my torch, and I'm coming for your job because you screwed me. It's not like that's the difference between like fascination with the outrage culture and being a part of the hive mind and the echo chamber of disappointment and rage versus this upsets me, and let me tell you why this is upsetting me. And
are you saying the difference
going through the list, right?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing to be a reasonable, thinking, thoughtful polite person, right? That's what we try to strive
lost art
for,
of
at least
being
in our
kind.
community. Right. Kindness doesn't necessarily mean you can't have an opinion or be antithetical to something, right? I mean,
Right.
you can disagree strongly with something and not be a jerk. You can disagree strongly with something and not shout somebody down
Yeah.
or use what in debate they call ad hominem attacks, meaning you attack
Yeah,
the person
attack the
for who they
person.
are and what they are. Yeah. So I mean, and I think the same is true with games and their design. If you disagree with how something's going, very politely convey your point of view in a cogent, thoughtful manner.
I had this conversation with my son yesterday because I said, if you're trying to get your sister to stop doing something, if you attack her, she's not going to hear anything you say. She's going to immediately go into defensive mode and defend herself. So if you actually want her to hear, then you have to think, how can I phrase this so that she will listen to me and we can have a conversation? And the same thing kind of works for Team 5. If all they hear is vitriol, I'm sorry, they're human beings too. I would automatically want to defend myself. But if you hear
Especially if it's
mature
just all
people
noise.
making reasonable arguments, then they're like, hey, wait, we should listen to that. Like that person very clearly stated how they feel. They're acting in a mature way. We should consider this. And if it's just a bunch of yelling and insults, then that's hard to take seriously.
Well, it's not like you're doing anything different than everyone else if you're complaining about the same things in the same way. Because Blizzard's just going to tune it
true.
out, and it's not even that they want to and they want to ignore your feedback. It's just they're gonna, because it's all it is like brainless whining. If we're gonna do brainless whining, then you can go to the forums and join all of them that are doing it. But if you want to have something that you're saying, I am upset, and that's not the description of the thread, then somebody is going to start paying attention to you. It's like, I think this might be broken, Blizzard. Can I tell you why? And if you're going about it in such a way that you're still communicating that you're upset, then game designers take it. I would say anyone at Blizzard will say, if something is broken and it's in the game and it's causing someone discomfort or causing someone inconvenience or even just like that they can't enjoy the game anymore at any level, the truth of that matter stings way more than a bunch of insults could. Because that means it's something they've put their hard-earned time in coding, in graphically designing, in voice acting, in making it so that the entire game works the way it's intended to. That hurts a lot because you've put, like, that's their job and something that they love. People don't work at Blizzard because they just do it. Like, Blizzard is the dream job by which people want to have passion to work there. Like, it's a prerequisite to working.
Well, and something some people don't consider, like, you know, Team 5, I don't know how many people are on the team. Let's say, hypothetically, there's 50 people on Team 5. 50 people is going to have a lot of good ideas, and they're going to have a lot of, quality control, and they're going to think things through. They're going to bounce stuff off each other. But 50 people thinking about a game is a lot different than millions of people thinking about a game. When you have millions of people considering the pros and the cons, the good, the bad, the possibilities for how to improve it, you're going to find stuff that you hadn't thought about before. It's just the way of the world. It's just the way things go. And what we need to stop doing as the millions of people who play the game, we need to stop assuming that these 50 people have deity-like intellects where they can consider all the possibilities and see all the options all at once and foresee the future events and how things will trickle down, especially with a game like Hearthstone, because Hearthstone is like, its success and failure hinges on whether or not the cards are balanced and are fun and are all these really difficult qualities that have to be in the game for it to work. Unlike so many other games, whereas so many other games are like, is it fun? Yes or no? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a lot less moving parts in a lot of other games. Like Destiny doesn't have as many moving parts. They have like, is this gun balanced or not? But the amount of cards that go into Hearthstone on a regular basis, there's so many moving parts to it that is definitely harder to deal with. Jesse Hill on the official Blizzard forums had like a big long post that he put out. I think it was yesterday. Is like, if I'm going to take your concerns to Team 5, because that's my job as a community manager, is to like take this, summarize it, take it to Team 5 and say, these are the concerns. It's a lot easier to take the concerns to Team 5 if they're like well written and worked out and organized. If it's just vitriol, you're not really taking that much to them to process and to work with. if it's just like anger and hate. So if you have something that you want to say and you word it properly, and I can take this to them and be like, here, and they can understand it and deal with it. So just think about that.
To
Going
be
through.
sure, Blizzard
Poor
doesn't have
Jesse.
50 people working there for Team 5. They've like doubled almost. I think last I heard, they had doubled their size every year that Blizzard's Team 5 has been in existence. So if you figure out where they were in their existence at some point, they've doubled it at least once or twice since then. So I'm pretty sure they're over 150, 300 people is kind of the general consensus that I would probably give you right now, and still increasing, of course. And not everyone at Blizzard does game design and, art, right? Like there are people that do coding, there are people, community managers, there's all localization, all that jazz. But there's one little asterisk at the very bottom here that I thought was really interesting. Additional changes to ranked play will be coming later this year, and those should also help the improvement in experience. We'll provide more details when those features are closer to release. That is something to look forward to, because I feel like people said that when the new ladder rollout, the first rollout being the amount of climbing back that you'll have to do, and then the number of stars, but the overall system still feels pretty much the same. I feel like we've touched on that a few times here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I wonder if that was only like a stage 1 in like the floor plan. Like you're doing an expansion on a building. You have like, all right, well, when we hit this certain capacity, then we're going to kind of expand. And then when we hit this capacity, we're going to expand a little bit more. And then when we hit here, then the main area is now a completely different building, and we're going to move into that. And then this is going to be the secondary building, even though that's where we spend all of our time. So that's like a school type of an idea, or a gym plan. I've seen schools do this all the time. I've seen churches do this with their auditoriums. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. There's building floor plans. House plans have done this too with additions. But anyways, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is maybe the next ladder changes aren't as small as maybe the sounds. It could be a very big thing. Quality of life,
Yeah, the
like we
changes
said, can be
they
massive.
made basically touched on a lot of ladder anxiety for me, I think. Like that's what they addressed the most, was not falling so far and not starting so far behind the next month. But like you said, the climb is still the same. You just know that you're not going to fall too far, and you're not going to start down too far, but the ladder still works the same as it always did. So I wonder if that like actually itself is going to change.
Okay, the last thing here is the Khadgar Hero is now running a promotion in Taiwan where you can purchase things like tea. You can obtain some points and redeem the points for Blizzard goodies. So just like going out in the real world and buying some cool things and grabbing some points off of what you're buying. You can get points, and then if you get the points, you can spend them on something. So 500 for a card back, 2,500 for Khadgar, and you can get a grand prize total of a 600 card pack contest, which is pretty cool. So,
only if you're in Taiwan.
If you are Taiwanese, you're probably not listening to this podcast, but hey, if you spend a couple weeks in Taiwan, maybe you can grind for that Khadgar here if you missed it. I don't know.
Buy a lot of tea.
Time for vacation,
Lots of
boys and
tea.
girls. Let's get some Khadgars.
Oh goodness.
But yeah, this is a really cool promotion that I'm happy that Blizzard like doesn't embrace like allowing everyone to have the same promotions, because it makes things interesting and special when you do get it when they roll it around. I think that's pretty cool.
Because otherwise, everyone on ladder would always have Khadgar.
Especially since mages have like 2 options and not just 1. So, anyways,
So 2 additional options and additional Jaina, right? If you right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jaina,
Yep.
Medivh, and Khadgar.
All right,
Should we
I
move
think it's
on?
about that time. We're going to go right into what we call the deck of the week. And Grant actually prepared one, with the caveat that he'd been playing a second deck that Eve was also playing, and Eve built a wild deck. So we came more than prepared this week for some fun stuff, and I think we're going to land on at least starting here with Even Warlock from Theo.
So, yeah, I played a lot of freaking Hearthstone this month, and I played a lot of different decks. It was almost like I kind of picked, like, just honed in on a deck for a couple days at a time and then switched. Because I kind of said last week, like, I tried to do my homework, what was good, what was not. But then I just kind of got tired of that and just thought I just maybe need to get better at Hearthstone, and so I played a couple different things. I really have been enjoying playing Even Warlock. I think it's a really strong deck. It kind of seems to fare pretty well against most things in the meta at the moment. So let's look at the deck list together, shall we? Let's see here. This is from Theo HS. He's a high
Can I
legend
ask you something
player.
before you get started? What does it
Sure.
feel like? Does it feel like a tempo deck, or like a mid-range deck,
Mid-range.
or like mid-range? Okay.
It feels like a mid-rangey version of old Handlock. That's what it feels like.
Okay,
And
so with
if
taunt
Interesting.
and big minions.
yeah, because you spend almost always your first 2 turns are life tap, even though your hero power is only 1 cost. The reason is
It
because
seems like a waste.
the best. I mean, before I get into the deck list, the best opening turn is like you want to have a Mountain Giant in your hand and a Vulgar Homunculus. Those are the 2 best cards to have in your hand for the most part for most matchups.
Okay.
And the way you get those out is you have to life tap to make it good, because you can put out if you have the coin, you can put out Mountain Giant on turn 3, and that's pretty stupid, and it panics a lot of people. Now, people know that, and so people mulligan really hard for their removal. It's a Warlock. I better get my naturalizes, and I better have my
Shadow Word
hexes and Shadow Word
Death.
Death, things like that, and so
Shadow
you
Word kill you.
expect that. So they mulligan, but if they don't have it, well, they're going to be taking it to the face pretty quick. You can win by turn 5 sometimes, turn 6 if they
Prepare
don't
for
have it.
disappointment.
But that's kind of the MO of the deck, is to get big stuff out and then taunt it up to where they can't do much to you.
Yeah.
Also, Warlock has the best removal in the game, in my opinion. It has Hellfire and it has Defile, and those 2 things really, really can give a lot of decks a bad time.
Defile, the bane of my
So,
existence.
So let's read the deck list down. This is from Theo, who's a high legend player. He published this. Now, the deck list I'm reading is one of the ones he published more recently.
Okay.
If you were to type in Theo, Even Warlock, you might get a slightly different list, and I'll talk about those differences in a second. But it runs 1 Acidic Swamp Ooze for those pesky Alaneths and Hunter Weapons and, Twig of the World Tree if it comes down early enough, things like that. 2
Minari.
Defiles. Yep, Skullaminari especially, but I have not seen any Q block in probably the last week.
That's probably because I'm in wild.
Yeah. 2 Defiles for those Paladins and those rogue decks. Doomsayer for the same people. He started putting an interesting inclusion as Stubborn Gastropod, which is a 1/2 taunt with poison. That card
MVP
is
in this deck. Let me
that
tell
card
you.
is just really good. It's especially on a faster deck. Shoot, it's almost a keep in against any deck, because it's really cool to like have your giant down first, they put their giant down, and then you put your gastropod down. They're like, I can't get through that. I don't have the right removal. If they don't have the removal, they're in trouble. That's just annoying to have a big giant 8/8 defeated by a little 1/2. It's just kind
But a
of
gastropod has 2 health, doesn't it?
yes, it has 2 health.
Is that not easy to get rid of? Have you
Well,
found
it
like people
is.
struggle to get rid of that thing?
It is, but it's one of those things they have to misuse their mana. Like they have to suboptimally play just to deal with it.
Okay.
So it's a good card. Incidentally, one of his other lists, Theo has 2 of them in his list.
Gosh.
Basically, the substitution is he subs out 2 Doomsayers for 1 Plated Beetle and another Stubborn Gastropod. So I think if you're seeing a lot of faster aggro decks, those are good
It
inclusions. 'Cause
basically guarantees a single tall board removal if they don't have a spell, right? That's kind of the go for.
yeah, it's just one more option to trip up your opponent. Basically, what it is. The deck also runs 2 Vulgar Homunculuses, which are very MVP cards. This is one of those cards. This is one of those cards that I was looking at HS Replay when I was looking at which cards are the best cards, and this is one of those cards that bumps your win rate up if you have it in your opening mulligan to like above 55 to 60%. So it's definitely a keeper. Hooked Reaver times 2, 2 Lesser Amethyst Spellstones, 2 Shroom Brewers, which are fun, 2 Spellbreakers. See,
Sorry. That's a little like
You're on
mini
point.
version of the top of the show.
yeah, it's I love that. I love
The
that
double
card so
dipping
much.
last week.
I'm just waiting for him to do like the emote of every card you go down now.
Nope.
Okay, do Twilight Drake now, Rob. Go. 'Cause that's next.
I was gonna say, isn't it just like a roar?
Yeah, it's just like "Meow," like that. It's just kind of like just a dragon
Just made a
sound.
farting sound. A little bit more accurate.
What does Spellbreaker do?
Spellbreaker is the
Die,
4/3 that
mage.
silences him.
Oh, is it
Die,
die
That's his
mage.
attack.
Yeah.
That's his attack thing. I
Your
don't know what
magic
it
will
is.
not save you.
Yeah, that's
Will
it.
not save you.
Is it will not or cannot? I don't know.
Will
Which
not.
one is your magic betrays you?
Your magic betray. I don't know. This particular list has 1 Dread Infernal. Some other lists run 2 Dread Infernals because of Gul'dan later on. Again, Greymane, 1 Siphon Soul, the Black Knight. Oh yeah,
What?
and Bone Mare plus Gul'dan and Mountain Giant. Now,
I
so
still have a Black Knight in Golden Grant.
I pulled
Bone
one
Mare.
time and dusted
Wow,
it a
all
couple of
of
years
the
ago.
cards. This is interesting.
Rob and
Yeah,
his
the Bone Mare is
golden
crazy.
highbrow collection. Okay.
Well, the
He
crazy
keeps
thing
waiting
is I
for it
never
to
had
become
a
meta
Black
again.
Knight, and then I opened it in Golden, and then after I had that, a couple months later, they rolled out the change where you can't get a duplicate, so I'm kind of like stuck with it until I finish all my collection.
Yeah.
Dang it, Curtis!
Oh well, those darn first world 1%er problems. So
This is true.
so the thing I like about first of all, the MO of the deck, as we kind of already talked about, is to you tap a couple times and you want to try and put out a Twilight Drake or a giant, a mountain giant. That's kind of what you want to do. You have to kind of scare your opponent. It's just odd because it's a warlock into doing things that they don't want to do. Like, well, they have to keep cards in their hand and play things that are very tempo negative just to stop you from beating them down in a matter of 2 or 3 turns.
Right.
Once you get your board established, that's kind of what you want to do. The other MO of the deck is because you only have to pay 1 to draw a card plus 2 health. You can always have a very robust hand, and that's something you want to do. So you always have options. Robust. It's very common by the 5th or 6th turn to have a roughly circa 15 health. And
Circa
then you
health.
can drop those hooked reavers, because let me tell you, hooked reavers are a problem, mister.
I keep forgetting they exist until they drop
Yeah.
down. I'm
Dude,
so
a
bad with that.
well-timed
I'm
Hook
like,
Reaver
I'm
is
getting it
so
so low, they're
bad.
gonna die, and then it's Reaver, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Well,
about
late
that card.
game, if you have a giant in your hand, you can put a giant and a hook reaver down, and it sucks because
It
they have
could just
15
flip the game.
15 stats. It can flip the game a lot. And that's one of the things that this deck can do, is it can very, very handily flip a game, especially if your opponent doesn't have really big AoEs. Like, this deck can struggle against Mage for that reason, is because Mage can just clear your board and then clear your board again, and it doesn't matter to them that you
Right.
have big, tall minions because they have stuff for that. But against like decks that don't run the big giant AoEs, it's a problem. Like a priest, I'll Psychic Stream your guys. You can get them back later. But paladins can have a rough time with it, and rogues can have a rough time, and hunters can have a rough time, depending.
Yeah, these days Paladin is not running any removal.
Yeah,
Like,
paladins,
there's no
like,
pyromancer equality out there or anything.
the way to beat paladin in general is have as wide a board as you can possibly have, as long as it's an odd paladin. If it's an odd paladin, they don't have anything to really deal with a big wide board. And if you have a big wide board, you can deal with their tiny little weenie 1/1s, no big deal. Doesn't matter what deck you're playing, really. So you when you play paladin with warlock, it's cool to have the giant in your hand, but the best way to beat them, because if they get you down too far, you get in the danger zone and they'll just silence your hook reaver and kill you. So the best way to combat them is to try and go toe to toe with some of your minions. So those gastropods and the homunculuses and the plated beetles and doomsayers and things like that, that's what you want to be at. Keep defiles, keep hellfires in your hands, because you have to get rid of it. And that's what you want to do. Be wary in odd paladin. People always forget this, and I forget this a lot too, is be wary of when they play a Stonehill Defender, that they will, if they snap pick their choices, that they
It's
picked the
Tyrion.
Tarim. It's Tarim,
Oh,
not Tyrion. It's almost always Tarim.
Tareem. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I see you have a very large board with a 7/7, a 6/6, and an 8/8. It'd be a shame if something happened to them. You know what I mean? And they all become 3/3s, and you lose. So just be mindful of that. Like, so when if you are playing paladin, if you see a Tareem, be very slow. But if you snap pick it like, Tareem, I know what I need, then the opponent, if they're savvy, will know. Yes,
Yeah.
that had to have been Tareem, because that's the only way you beat me. I don't care if you put any other taunt down. because I can match a big fatty taunt, no big deal. But a Tareem really wrecks my day. So, because it puts you on equal footing with their weenies, which sounds really strange to say. So.
You're on equal playing field with my weenies.
But you shouldn't have left any of the weenies up.
Sorry.
Like, unless he just hero powered
Right.
and then Tareemed, like, you need to always be getting rid of those 1/1s as
Yeah,
much
so
as you
there-
possibly can.
Now, this deck, I actually think that this deck is a little bit trickier to play than a lot of people give it credit for, because you have to be always thinking, managing your health. I mean, I can't even tell you how many games I was like, man, whoa, wait, I have 12 health? When did I get 12 health? That's crazy. You have to manage your health. You have to make sure you don't overcommit depending on what kind of class you're
that's true.
playing. Things like that. There's lots of things to think about, and it feels like you're kind of spinning plates. Like you have to just kind of shift your thinking from one aspect of Hearthstone, like how much health do I have? What's my board state? What do they have? You have to cycle through, and
Yeah,
that's
I
just
can
good
see
Hearthstone
that.
play in general. But I think this deck tends to amp it up. Like you even have to think about things like when I have a Shroom Brewer, do I heal face or do I heal minion? Because sometimes you'll trade a minion, you use the Shroom Brewer to heal the minion because that's an option you have. And I see a lot of people do that, and they end up winning because you thought maybe you would trade with that big giant fatty that you need to get through, and like, oh no, they just healed it. I guess I'm not trading with it, and things like that. So Siphon Soul, Black Knight, and Bone Mare are three in the gastropods. We already talked about 3 cards that kind of aren't generally included in, like, if you go on HRS replay, they're not necessarily in the even lock top best decks. That's something Theo put in, and I was thinking about him, like, the Black Knight just feels so good when you can just you can flop a minion down and take out their Lich King, or take out whatever's in the way for you to have exact lethal. Siphon Souls does a similar thing. And Bone Mare just can add one more than anything, it can add a taunt. So late game, you just really need that taunt because that Paladin really did get you down, and they've exhausted some of their stuff, and they just have a few more minions than you. Putting down that stubborn gastropod, or that or even the ooze, or a 2-drop minion, or the homunculus, and then putting a Bone Mare on it makes it very difficult for them to get through if they've already like silenced your stuff that you've taunted up. So those are really good cards. They do give you a little bit of heft in the end game, whereas a lot of decks will run 2 plated beetles and then 2 of the smaller minions. So those kind of cards tend to do really well in a more controlling meta, which I think it's kind of been, as long as Druid is strong, which it is. Like there's 3 or 4 really strong Druid decks, and they all run taunt something or other. In fact, most of the control decks run the Lich King just because it's a stinking good card. Black Knight makes a lot of sense. And a 4/5 body, even though it's for 6 mana, that kills a big giant taunt, is totally worth, because it gives you something to do. And it's a 4 attack, so Priest can't do anything. But then again, Priest isn't really been a factor lately. So I like this deck. This is the deck I'm going to hit it really hard tomorrow, trying to go forward, because I have been in rank 1 6 times this month. I have played my butt off this month. I peaked at rank 1.4 and fell down. But this is the deck that I felt like always seems the most consistent for me in any given meta.
Grant, would you agree that Black Knight's probably the most replaceable card in the list?
Bone Mare's pretty replaceable too. I mean, that's the
I know
thing,
Dread
is like
Infernals were in this list before, right? Like there's just running 2, and this list only has 1. So if you want
there's
to
only one in it.
cut a Black Knight for a second Bone Mare, a Black Knight for a second Dread Infernal, you could probably do that.
I like Dread Infernal when there's a lot of Paladin. When you see in a lot of Paladin, I'd rather have 2 Dread Infernals than a Siphon
Then you can
Soul,
cut another Bone Mare for
Yeah.
a Primordial Drake, because that's 8 mana. That's an option in the toolbox.
You could consider, again, it's just one of those
This is what
things.
you're
Bone
seeing.
Mare, Black Knight, Siphon Soul are probably the 3 most flexible spots in the deck, because Gastropod is not necessarily a need. That's not even a common card in the list.
Right.
So like adding the Dread Infernal, adding 2 Doomsayers, 2 Plated Beetles is what you typically see. You don't see, I sometimes even see Twisting Nethers, depending on the meta. A Twisting Nether could be a good inclusion if you just need to have an emergency button.
How much mana is Twisting Nether?
8 mana.
How much mana is that Warlock legendary that is like Defile but for 2?
Lord Godfrey?
7.
He's 7.
Oh, he won't fit in here. Okay.
Well, and that's the thing is you don't really. Godfrey's a little too powerful for what you're trying to do. I could see a world where he might be good as an emergency button, especially against Paladin and maybe even Rogue. But
Primordial Jake just seems to be a little bit of a better option anyways in that sense.
Yeah.
You get a taunt and a clear. Yeah.
And Primordial Drake's just a good card.
Right.
8 health taunt is really good.
It's one of those cards that I think you could put in main. Interesting about Blood Reaver Gul'dan is Gul'dan, he a lot of times you use him just as like a stabilizer card. Because a lot of times you just want the 2 homunculuses just to stop the big guys from hitting you in the face so you can kill them in the next turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't function. He really doesn't function like he typically functions in other decks. Like in both in Zoo and in Q Block, you're kind of wanting to get back usually maybe some homunculuses, some weenie minions, but really the Doom Guards is what you're thinking about with those decks. In this deck, if you're doing good, you'll on average, I was finding I was getting back maybe on average both homunculuses and a unbuffed Hook Reaver, which is a 4/4, because when Gul'dan summons them back, they're 4/4s and not 7/7s. The 7/7 is a battle cry given the condition. So when he summons them, it's a 4/4. But sometimes that's all you need. But really, it's a stabilizer, and sometimes you just want to use it to like just ping them down. So Gul'dan is like a. I almost wonder if that card's not replaceable. But again, I think you could probably even run the deck without him because it's not though. It's really not your end game.
But I just mean like if you get to an end game and you're just trying to get like live a little bit longer. That's what I mean by end game. I completely said it the wrong way because end game usually means your win condition. But yeah, just kind of like to get you a little bit further along so that you can kill your opponent.
Yeah.
The other thing, too,
I think the risk with this is the 1 mana hero power because you can pretty much tap
squeeze it
every
in
turn.
on every odd turn.
It's awesome. It's so awesome.
that's like if you can forget that hits you for 2 every single time.
You don't ever want to think about
like
what
Grant
to do
was
on
saying.
turn 1 without the coin. Play this even deck.
You find yourself down at like 12 health and you're like, wow, how did I get there so fast? It's probably just that you always have that hero power option. And if you forget that it does 2 damage to you every time, you can go down pretty quick.
Yeah. This deck is dumb. Like the second time I got up to all the way up to rank 1, I was at rank 4 and I just flew up to rank 1 with this deck. Not this exact list, but I was finding Plated Beetles as not doing as much as I wish they would because I wasn't just using them very early game. They ended up being more mid-late game when I just need a little extra health or just flop a minion down. And so, I mean, I don't feel like with this deck you do much until mid to late game. You know, turn 4 is almost the first time you do anything, depending on the matchup, especially against like Druid and the bigger decks. So, I mean, I think this deck is tricky. I think there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of consideration because, like, there are sometimes it's like, well, I guess I'm not hero powering because that darn Paladin just, you know, turn 1, put out Lost in the Jungle, coin, put out the second Lost in the Jungle. I guess I have to do the homunculus or else I'm dead. You know what I mean? Or coin, you know, or waited a turn, hero power on the first turn, and on turn 2 defile just because you just don't want to get them running away too quick. You know, things like that. There's some very situational things, but for the most part, for turn 1 hero power, turn 2 hero power, turn 3 play a minion hero power or hero power, and then play a minion. Make sure that you always hero. First. Make sure that you tap before you play the homunculus because if you tap and then you get the spellstone and then you get the homunculus, you actually get the buff. It's really easy to play and then tap and go, oh crap. Now, always make sure you tap first and just good Warlock practice.
If you've never played a deck like this before, like this is very similar to what we would call like the handlock of old, where, and even if you just play a lot of Q block, it's similar, but when playing the list, you need to be aware of your health total pretty much on any given turn and knowing what resources are at your disposal that are not in your hand. So if you haven't drawn a spellstone yet, playing around tapping into it while you have something to trigger it is huge because you do have your Shroom Brewers to give you a little bit of health. You get a little bit of bubblies, a little bit of yummies, okay? So you can still survive. Yummy! But you really can't stick around for very long with the same game plan of drawing cards and having a lot of resources without drawing at least one of your spellstones. I feel like if you're in the top 15 cards or top 20 cards and you haven't drawn a spellstone that's at least been powered up once, this deck is really tough to gain an advantage against another deck that's going pretty close to you. You basically are banking on getting a way to heal up and burst down at a given turn, which is what the Boneer is for. and the mountain giants are for pressuring them first. So you kind of have to pick your battles, and then hopefully when you go toe to toe, you drop Reavers for 4 mana, and they're like, crap, I'm on a clock now. So that's kind of like what I would say is what you want to be looking for, is trying to maintain your health total and also provide pressure. That's kind of the tiptoe balance on the tightrope that you're staying between those two camps.
And that's actually a really good point, Rob. I hadn't thought about that, but a lot of the games that you win are the games where you can establish a board and then use your spell stones to manage theirs. So you don't have to trade your minions, because one of the ways your opponent really is going to hurt you is if you have to use your big guys to trade into their guys to manage their board, because then they can just use a couple little fancy tricks to clear it. So like if you get a big board against a Shudderwalk Shaman, they're going to have a harder time clearing it unless they have a volcano and the right amount of damage. But if you have to trade into some of their guys, you let their guys trade into some of your guys, they have to. I've had it where I had like, oh man, I got this board, and they would go double lightning, something or other, and it was just like, well, I guess I can't win now. And then they would proceed to just take over and win. So
sure,
spellstones are super, super helpful. The other thing is you kind of have to think about, if I play a spellstone and heal myself, or I use the Shroom Brewer to heal myself, is that better than putting down a taunt for 7/7? You know what I mean?
Right. There's always
the other
that
thing.
too.
There's that, so you have to like think, do I actually want to heal yet? Another thing to think about is
valuing taunts, right? Because that's what the Bone Mirror helps with, is it gives you burst, but it also protects you, which is kind of rare, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one Bone Mirror feels right in this deck, because you always want it, but sometimes that late game you're just, man, it makes a late game pull of a 2-drop worth something all of a sudden, because that 2-drop, that 2/3 now is a 6/7, and a 6/7 with taunts sucks. So
crazy.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool deck. I enjoyed playing it. It's not, I wouldn't call it modular, but it's trickier to play, and I think if piloted well, it can just be disgusting.
I'm gonna have to play this
week.
Deal with you. I got exam week this week, so I got nothing to do. So,
well, I staved off from playing it for a long time. Like, oh, I hate this deck, but I was like, well, maybe I just need to play it.
This deck used to have Glinda and like wisps in it, and like a bunch of cheese, right?
No, there was a Glinda Zoo that had that with like the penguins. So you play Glinda and you have infinite penguins until you flip the board up, which is pretty funny. Glinda Popper's penguins, but
well, I know that they would do that, and then you'd have like a Shroom Brewer, and you could just drop 2 of them for free, or you drop a second one for free and heal for 8, and you got 2 4/4s on the board. I know that was something cool that you could do, but Glinda seems like very different than this deck, because this is trying to curve you out a little bit better.
Yeah, this is a very much a mid-rangey deck. It feels like a mid-rangey deck because it's got some good removal. Sure. It's got good early game. It's got good mid game, good late game. I mean, it's a good deck.
Yeah. I want to talk about dragons.
Okay, let's move on from warlocks to dragons.
Onward to Dragon and Draconia.
We were boring Eve with our warlock talk.
Eve doesn't want to talk.
No,
warlock
I just
anymore.
think that you covered everything very well. That's what I think.
Good.
You did a good job.
Now this is a wild list. Is that correct, Eve?
It is. Because I had that quest, like one of the ones that actually asks you to play something where you're supposed to play dragons.
Don't tell me what to do.
And I was like, you know what? I don't want to play in standard right now, but there are dragons in wild.
Ooh.
I will go where the dragons are.
I will go with the dragons.
Guide me to the Draconia.
So I just tried to remember like what I could remember of your classic Dragon Priest.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into my collection and pressed in dragon, and then just started clicking on dragons.
Nice.
And there was like, there's like,
I like
no
where
spells
this is going
at all in my deck to begin with. It was just
totally
like
a minion deck, huh?
all the dragons. And then I saw that I had a golden night scale matriarch and was like, okay, that's going in. That's pretty. Makes a lot of tiny baby golden dragons. That's going in.
Didn't know you had golden cards of certain things.
I also really always liked Blackwing Technician, even though she's like not really in a lot of the classic Dragon Priest decks because she's kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always get her out.
Very awkward.
Yeah, but you have all dragons in this deck. It's not going to be terribly difficult with her.
Right. I was really heavy-handed with the dragons, so I literally never had an issue with being able to get Blackwing Corruptor all ready to go. And then I won games enough to get me from rank 9 to rank 8.
Okay.
And then I started hitting like a wall of warlocks.
Hmm.
The
And
Warlock
we won't
Wall
talk
of
about that
Death.
because Eve gets salty. But I
That's why we're
took my
talking about Dragon Freeze right now.
yes. I was like, damn it! I ran away to wild. Leave me alone.
Stop
I
following
took-
me, Warlock.
I took my
Oh.
deck to Discord and I was like, okay, guys, I'm gonna ask you guys to help me because I do kind of want to win with this. It is just a fun deck, and I am like sort of winning with it, but help me make it a little bit better. But I refuse to take my Night Scale Matriarch out, so I'm just gonna tell you that off the top. And so I thought that might be a
Card's
fun thing for you
sweet,
guys.
By the way, I love that card.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
So cool.
Has a lot of potential, actually.
I started out with all the Deathwings. Dragon Lord and regular Deathwing
the
and
Deathwing.
Ysera and Nefarian, like all of the awesome
All
cards
of the
in
good
there.
ones.
But then some kind people said you should probably not have all of them. You should probably have some spells in there, like some
It's like
some
awesome
shadow.
cards. How
word
about
pains.
no?
I'm like, listen, I understand what you're saying, but I still want it to be fun. So yeah, I took a couple of the big heavy endgame ones out and put in some Shadow Word Pains, some Shadow Word Deaths, and
Mhm.
some Shadow Visions so I could get even more pains and more deaths. And Dragonfire Potion. Because that's just like the best clear ever.
Yeah.
You know what I
Dragonfire's
did
pretty
actually?
hot.
I was up against a mage and I used Draconid Operative and got a Lana Dragon Collar off of it. Because I looked at my spells and I was like, ooh, I have
What?
Dragonfire Potion.
That's crazy.
And so I was like, every time I use my Shadow Visions, I'm going to choose Dragonfire Potion and just use as many of them as I possibly can. And then put out Alana with 4 dragons, I think it was. It ended up being.
Eve
But
turned
you
into
guys, I
Mrs.
still-
Steelio Dragons.
I still lost that game.
Hey, but you probably had a lot more fun than the other guy. Let me tell you.
Yes.
Jeez.
I will say that. I was like, listen, I'm playing fun games and having fun. So you and your freeze mage. Ugh.
Gosh.
Anyway,
You and your
Freeze
anti-fun
mage.
can go shove it. I'm gonna sit here with some Dargans, okay?
that's how I felt when I went up against the
Dargans.
Kingsbane. I was like, I don't care. Even though I'm losing this game, I'm still having more fun than you. So you can just, you and your Kingsbane rogue.
I love this list, including Brandsbeard. Brand Bronzebeard.
Brand's Bronzebeard.
Like this is something that
I get no
is
value out of him, Rob.
nuts.
Like never, ever. He dies immediately.
I feel like you are either using him too much as a lightning rod, or you want to basically only use it when you can play it for an 8-mana operative. And that sounds like nuts to me. Like being able
So
to do
always
that,
wait till turn 8.
pretty much.
Or you could use it for finishing with a.
Yeah, the other
Blackwing
thing is
Corruptor.
your main powerhouses should be medium to lower tier cards that are benefiting from Bran. Like think about all of the stuff that
Netherspite
Bran
Historian.
was really good with, Eve, back when it was played.
Netherspite Historian, because you get to choose 2 dragons.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's
really
the main
awesome.
play, right? That's your get late game cards for out of jail free card, right? I guess you could say is like get.
Here's
better
the problem,
protections
though,
card later.
Is that I would be playing everything on tempo because there's so many like pretty aggressive decks out there, especially they still have aggro shaman. So I had to play my Draconid operatives on turn 5. Like I can't hold them until I can play them with a Bran.
Mhm.
I mean,
And I
this
might
is
be
the-
misplaying it.
this is
I'm
the
ready
list
to
that's
agree
playing
that,
curve,
but
right? You got to play stuff
Yeah.
on curve. You got to get the board and hold it. So I think
Yeah.
that Bran may be the card we want to look at changing out.
yeah.
I have a
Maybe you wanna get
suggestion. I was
something
thinking
else.
about it.
Okay, go ahead.
What is that?
I was thinking the card Divine Hymn heals all your minions face. That card, because your entire strategy is your minions surviving, and priest minions are good at that. They tend to
Yeah.
have bigger butts. But if you can do a lot of trading and then Divine Hymn,
Especially with
it heals your
Matriarch.
face, especially with Matriarch. And then oh gosh, can you imagine having a Matriarch out and then, ooh, that could be so good.
Isn't
Anyways,
Binding Heal a
um,
card too? If you're just trying to go all in on the Matriarch,
yeah, Binding Heal is the one that heals
heals a minion for 5 and your face for 5 for 1,
Yeah,
or it might be for
I mean,
2.
that might be too many
Okay,
spells.
so we get rid of
but-
Bran?
I think you have to at this point.
I think Bran might just be too clever, too tricksy,
Greedy?
if you will.
Well, if you're playing something on curve, the idea of the deck is to be playing one card on curve or maybe two. Brand's asking you to do a lot more for value later, and if your issue with the deck is not being able to compete in the here and now, then Brand's not going to help you shore up that weakness.
That has been my experience, that I had to play something every turn just to answer what they were playing and to keep one step ahead, and I didn't really have an option to wait. So I found I was never getting value out of them. So
I definitely like the inclusion of the Wormrest agents.
Those are
Although
great
I
cards in the
think
game.
that the Twilight Whelps, you might want to like consider something else, maybe like cutting them for spells, unless you really want to get them on turn one.
they were. It's not that they were always a good trigger, right? Because I want to be able to play all of the rest of them. Duskbreaker needs a trigger. Twilight Guardian needs a trigger. Blackwing Corruptor needs a trigger. Like all of these different dragons need another dragon to be the trigger. So sometimes it was just something I didn't mind holding in my hand because I wanted to play the other ones, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to hold a dragon into operative so I can trigger a Twilight Guardian, you know? I want to be able to play
Twilight
both.
Drake for that though.
I don't have a Twilight Drake in here. Like, don't I want a turn one play? If you make a deck without having a turn one play?
It depends on what your issues are. Is your issue on turn one? Because that's
Well,
the only
against
card you
me.
have in the deck. What happens when you don't have them? What happens when you don't have them? Is it that bad?
Then I wait until turn 2 and put down Netherspite Historian.
And you need a dragon for that, don't you?
Yes.
Twilight Drake it is. And also the worm, the Jormonger looking worm, the one that has like it turns into a 5/4 with charge. That seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, it's not as good as a Blackwing Corruptor in a lot of ways, but it's also better in others. Like if you're willing to trade a card for a card, it acts as a spell.
It does act like a spell, yeah. The card's almost always strong whenever you play it.
So
Yeah,
that card seems
Wormrest
good.
Agent was always like, when I played against Paladin, it was good to have a Wormrest Agent and then to follow it up with Twilight Guardian, and they
I
just
think
kind
you
of
could
cry a
cut
little
a pain
inside.
as well, to be honest. I don't think you need the 2 pains per se. If you want to run like more of
Yeah,
like
I
an
agree with that.
AoE, you could run.
I think I could run
What's-
just one pain.
What's
and
the
be
one that
fine.
heals you, Grant? The 2 mana
Spirit Lash?
Spirit Lash. Maybe Spirit Lash. Like if are you seeing a bunch of white weenie types decks, or like where you could kill stuff for 1 health? The Spirit Lash seems like a
Probably,
good
yeah.
option.
Spirit Lash is good. And then I could also intentionally deal damage to my own Nightscale Matriarch and then heal it up with, what did we talk about earlier?
Divine Hymn.
Divine Hymn?
Yeah,
Blinding
Divine
Heal.
Him, and then get a whole bunch of.
Circle of Healing.
Yeah.
Oh, Circle has no place in this deck. What am I saying?
Yeah, not Circle of Healing.
I definitely feel
Although-
like if you're running an Alex, I'd rather have a Ysera in this build. Ysera
Why?
gives you staying power, and it's durable.
Yeah, Alex seems like a clunky... I don't like Alex in this
Well,
You know
here's
what?
the thing.
We need Void
you got to
Ripper.
think of Wild, right? Because
We need a
in
Void
Wild,
Ripper.
Reno Jackson exists, right?
Yeah.
So
that's
Reno
true.
Jackson, also
that's true.
Warlock being able to heal themselves all the way back up to full, and like so she was there for my you think you're safe, you think you healed all the way back up, and I can't hurt you, and then Alex and I kill you. So that was kind of why she's in there, and I have won games with her, so that's why I held on to her, even though I got rid of all of the Death Wings.
Yeah, but I mean, the issue with that for me is you want to start seeing the games where you're winning because of Alex, and the games where you're losing because it's dead in your hand. Because that's the dichotomy that you have to exist by. And then the other is an 8/8 for 9 helping you win the game when either of those figures are not present? I.e., you have to Alex yourself to heal, or you just play Alex on turn and you actually heal them for 2, or you only do like 3 damage with Alex. Are you still winning the game because of that card's inclusion? Because with Alex, if you replace it with a Ysera, and then at some point in the idea where Grant and I are kind of talking over each other, which is our fault, but you could run a Void Ripper and just burst them for 12. That seems pretty crazy. And then basically anytime you're playing Alex, you're getting a crazy resource on the board that has to be either dealt with or ignored. And then if it gets ignored, you get 2 cards out of it. And this deck is all about like playing something and getting something. And
Okay, so Ysera instead of Alex.
I feel like, yeah,
I would actually consider subbing in a Death...
you could even
With
say
Death Knight
Deathwing if you
Anduin.
really like. Yeah, Anduin
I like
seems good.
Anduin
too.
over Deathwing because Anduin kills a lot of stuff.
And it doesn't sacrifice your
game.
hand.
Doesn't sacrifice your hand, and it gives you a little bit of extra ping.
But we have to
And-
realize how many dragons we have, right? Whatever the rule of thumb was with how many dragons you need to make a dragon deck, right? It was like 6 or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of dragons in here. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think you have to have a minimum of 6 dragons or more. 6 to 8 dragons is the sweet spot.
Oh, another thing I added was squashlings.
Oh
Squashlings,
yeah, you
good.
told us about that. Talk to us.
Yeah, there just is a point where the rogue has like almost run out of steam and you're like at 12 health, so they think that they have a chance to like burst you down the next turn, and then I spend my entire turn just healing back up with squashlings and they concede.
The other thing
Nobody
you could
expects
consider
squashlings.
is like
it's such a card that
yeah, I mean
it's out of left
the
field.
funny thing is like squashlings are like the one card where you're like, wait, dragon deck has pumpkins? The flip? Like what?
okay, I have to be honest with you, the reason I put them in is because they are also gold.
Do you buy cars based on color?
I don't own a car, so I can't answer that question.
How about my
like,
bike?
you know,
because
some
it's
people are like,
brown? If that
well,
tells you
they,
anything.
studies show that people will go to a dealership and like, I like it because it's red. Never mind gas mileage.
I
like it
was
'cause
trying
it's
to
red.
find something that would bring me back to actually play Hearthstone again, even though I just was so done with it and so angry and bitter. So I'm going, this is something that's going to make me want to play.
Mhm.
So if it's really good and it's really meta, but I'm not going to play it, then there's no point.
Right.
Smashing. Then
But-
you need to call your deck Smashing Dragons and include 2 squashlings. That's
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh, Rob,
Instead of
that's so
Smashing
good.
Pumpkins.
Nice.
I love it.
You can even include a not an Akanai. What's the other one? The 2 mana shadow. Gosh dang it, Grant, the one that like flips all of your heals to damage. It's a 2 mana spell.
Oh,
Confusion?
no.
Oh
It's,
no. Oh, you.
I know what you're talking about. It's I'm
Why
totally
isn't
blanking
it
out.
Akanai Soul Priest?
Well, that does it, but there's the spell that for just a turn. I don't
My
remember what it's
goodness, I have never had this much trouble with trying to figure out.
called.
What
Well,
a
because
spell
they're
is.
wild cards now, and they weren't super common to play with. Even
And
when they
also,
were
I
in
think I
standard.
dusted it. Embrace the Shadow.
Embrace the Shadow. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I
Okay.
couldn't find it. It's because I dusted it.
You
Because
can
it's an
Embrace
epic.
the Shadow and burst for 8 with
nobody uses it.
squashlings. Omega lol.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Okay, so right now, because I haven't gotten rid of them yet, I have 2 Twilight Whelps, 1 Divine Hymn, 2 Netherspite Historians, 2 Shadow Visions, 2 Shadow Word Pain, 1 Spirit Lash, 1 Squashling, 2 Wormrest Agent, 2 Blackwing Technician, 2 Shadow Word Death, 2 Twilight Acolyte, which I've used the heck out of those, 2 Duskbreaker, 2 Twilight Guardian, 2 Blackwing Corruptor, 2 Draconid Operative, 2 Dragonfire Potion, 1 Nightscale Matriarch, and 1 Ysera.
Okay, how many dragon cards do we have?
One.
Like actual
Like,
dragons.
So I count
dragon
2
tags.
for Draconid Operatives then? Like if
No.
I have 2 of them, I
Dragon
count 2?
Operators count as 1 each.
But
They generate a
You're
card from your
confusing me.
opponent's deck. They don't generate a dragon.
no, but I mean, like if I have 2 of them in my deck, then I count them
You
as
count
2,
them as
not
2,
1.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 1.
You're talking
2.
individual cards, not individual
Individual
names, but like
dragon cards,
actual.
yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like
6?
10.
10's plenty.
Oh yeah, that
And
might even be
10.
more than enough. Honestly, I feel like looking at this list,
Well,
Your
it's because
weakest
even though
spot
they are
is-
dragons, a lot of them need dragons to also.
yeah. Timeout though. Like 3 mana
And
is
they're
the weak
fun.
spot of this list.
hmm
Because you're just getting a 3/5 if you have a dragon, and out of the technicians, or you're doing death, or you're using a Twilight Acolyte to kind
3/5
of like.
for
neuter
3 is
something.
good.
It's kind of like you're just playing it to get stats at that point. I feel like the technicians
am.
are kind of like the weaker cards of the list, especially if you can.
What is a
wait
better
one
thing
more.
to do on turn 3?
Well, there really isn't. It's a priest. I mean,
Cabal Talon Priest, Dark Cultist.
now Cabal Talon Priest. Now we're talking.
Valen's chosen.
No,
The
Yeah, but if it doesn't-
spell.
Cabal Talon Priest is a pretty busted card because
Especially with Twilight Acolyte.
it's not just the
Ugh.
3/5 with the restriction. It's a 3/4 with no restriction other than if you have a minion on board, you get another 3 health.
Yeah, but on
Yeah.
turn 3, what do I have on board? I have a Netherspite Historian, which is a 1/3. So it makes it a 1/6.
Unless you have a Wormrest Agent, and then that's a 2/7.
That's correct. That's correct.
And if you have a
Cabal
Twilight
Talon Priest is a
Whelp that's a
super good card.
2/7.
Well, why don't you just use the Dark Cultist?
What's the Dark Cultist do?
He's the guy
Death
that
Rattle,
Death
give a
Rattle.
random friendly minion plus 3 health.
I
So it's a
mean,
Death
that-
Rattle instead
that
of a Battle
better, or
Cry.
is-
Talon Priest is just better
because it happens right away.
because it has
Yeah.
the initiative. Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah, Samurai Flea in the chat
Ooh.
agrees with that thing, but it does lose a little bit of the dragon fun, so we are sacrificing that.
Talon Priest
But
has
you could
effective
probably
ones,
put the
yeah.
Jormongers in and have a 4-mana minion with a 5 attack, 4 health. So it becomes a 5/4 with charge or with rush if you want to do that. That's another option in the toolbox if you want to stick with the dragon motif outside of Talon Priest. But again, it doesn't show up the weaknesses on 3. But it does show up the weaknesses on 4, which is either you play a Twilight Guardian with Taunt, or you play Duskbreaker for the AoE. Yeah, and
both of
I
those are
agree.
good.
I agree, Samurai. The deck is so minion focused that the Talon Priest helps hold it. Helps you make your guys more durable. So
It
the
is
only other
very
thing I'm
minion
thinking of
focused.
is adding something on 3 that has Taunt. That would be the only other option for me. Would be
Or a Nightmare Amalgam.
now that's actually not a bad idea, but I feel like the amalgams have more staying power with a Talon Priest than anything.
Yeah,
alongside
Amalgams,
of
or
them.
possibly even a Tar Creeper if you're seeing a lot of aggro, because Tar Creeper can shut a lot of that down.
Or what's the? No, that doesn't do anything. Never mind. But yeah, I think
trying to
this is
think of
good.
raw-
This is let's actually conclude our discussion and say, hey guys, I hear you like wild. I hear you like dragons and squashing your opponents and your pumpkins. So why don't you guys take your hand about this? Let's have a deck building discussion in the Discord this week.
What about a
But-
Vicious Fledgling? No?
Let's leave it up to the listeners to figure out if they want to try it. Shall we? I think it could be fun. It's a good exercise. It's more.
It's a lightning
community
rod, soft
It is a
taunt.
lightning rod. It's kind of
Make
what
your
Brian
argue
does.
for what is the best 3-drop to go in my dragon deck.
So here's what our restrictions are going to be. You need to have at least 6 dragons, and you need to run at least 1 squashling, and that's it. Those are your deck building restrictions. Have at it.
And no wicked good, we're not making Spiteful Priest.
Oh, also, Eve, you said that they need to have a Nightscale Matriarch. Is one of the dragons?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Nightscale Matriarch.
So you need to have Nightscale Matriarch, 5 dragons on top of that, and at least 1 squashling.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Those are your 3 deck building things, and it can be wild, but it doesn't have to be. If you guys really want to go for it and try it in standard, go for it. That's fine.
It'd be easier to have a more coherent deck in Wild, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. All right,
there's
I
a lot
think
more
that's gonna
dragons,
be
but
it. This is a good
Matriarch
idea.
isn't
You-
standard, right? Like Matriarch is a standard card, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool then. If you
Okay.
send them to me, I will play them.
We will try it, and we'll get back to you next week, and maybe, just maybe, we'll have some more news and follow up to do this. Eve, would you like to save the lore or to conclude the show at an hour or 30 this week, or would you like to push it to about hour 40 and talk about the consortium and the ethereal?
Well, this is your favorite thing, Rob. So do we want to save it for next week so that you can talk
we-
about it properly?
Can we do it next week? I would prefer
Yeah,
it. Okay,
let's do it
so
next week.
guys, we're going to be talking about ethereals and the consortium in the lore moment. Alrighty?
Yeah.
I have no idea what the consortium is, so I'm excited.
It's an organization with the ethereals. That'll be your teaser.
Got it.
All right, if you guys want to support the show, you can do so by heading over to iTunes. We have a new iTunes review this week, and I'm pulling it open right now and doing a really poor job at stalling for time. The
Is
way
it
that
in
you
our
can-
email?
It's in the
no,
Discord.
I pinged it. Here you go. It says, amazing show from BB Joe 08 on June 26th. Really enjoying the show. Love the lore. And your current episode about Gaming Edition was really informative. I could really relate to Eve and Grant's situation. Thank you so much for your iTunes review and also the kind words paired with it. If you guys want to give us some feedback. You can do that on your iTunes app, or you can do it on your browser, or the iTunes application for your PC. We also have a update this last week. I'm not sure if we mentioned that we had a pledge from Thiago A, but we have a new patron. I can't remember if we mentioned that last week because of the
Yeah, we
mood of the
didn't. That's
show.
why I put it in, because
So-
we didn't mention it on the show last
I want to make sure that we thanked
week.
this individual for joining, and I believe Thiago had some issues with the Patreon role in the Discord, and I was able to help him out and figure that out. So we're all sorted. Speaking of Discord and Patreon, you guys can support us at patreon.com/VelensChosen. It is a great way to give us a little bit of a tip for our service, I guess you could say, even though
Our
it's
hard
not-
work, Rob. Our hard
we
work.
do this like even
Our
if you don't give us
knowledge, our
any money.
expertise.
And I've gotten
sharing
razzed
of
on
our
in the
time.
past for both playfully and seriously from the community members of like promoting the Patreon. Let's be clear, the jokes are aside this week. Patreon is just something extra. We would do this every week, whether or not you paid us or not, but it does help us out. So if you want to help us out, please head over to patreon.com/VelensChosen, and you can use your hard-earned money however you'd like. And if you don't, that's fine. There's plenty of other creators out there for you guys to support, and also Hearthstone creators in the same space that we'd be happy to do. I would also like to give you a little teaser that if you are a very religious podcast listener, that over the next 2 weeks, you might see me on another Hearthstone podcast.
Which
So-
one could it be?
A little teaser for you this week. If you want to follow anything and everything to do with Velen's Chosen, you can find us on Twitter, and on all of our links are on our website at velenschosen.com/links. Grant, where can people find you?
If you want to find me, Twitter is the easiest place to get hold of me. It's at WatchmanHS. Friend me in game, Watchman #1140. And if you want coaching and you want to pay for it, because honestly, my time's mostly very limited these days, especially because I'm such a serious player. I don't always make time to teach other people Hearthstone. But if you want to, you can find me on Gamer Sensei. I'm on there. What else?
You were on a podcast this week, weren't you, Grant?
Oh yeah, I was on the Daring Reporter earlier this week, or was it this week? It
Reporting
was
on
the week
dares.
before. It was yeah, I had a good conversation with Kurt Johnson. It was good time.
Sweet. Yeah, go check it out.
I will probably also be on a Hearthstone podcast this coming week as well. So we're just
about your
all
other
getting
show?
spread all
The
around.
new one.
Right. We did an episode of. Okay, now I have to get it right because I keep saying it backwards. The Knights of Lore. Yes, because sometimes I say Lore Knights, and that is not it. It is The Knights of Lore is the
Gotta put
name
your
of
helmet
my
on
new
first.
lore podcast. Knight first, then
Night,
lore.
and then you can tell the story. Damn it.
Okay, I'm gonna remember that from now on. I'll
Adventure
just think
first,
of putting my
and then
helmet on
you cut
first.
the arms off.
Yeah, I do it with Storm Rage from Blizzlet and Daring Alkaline from the Daring Reporter. We got together and we're
Sweet.
doing a lore podcast. We already have one episode out, which is about Nova from StarCraft, and then we just did one about Destiny. So if you've ever wondered
Nova
about the lore of Destiny, we had a lot of fun doing that, and there will be more coming out as well. Yeah, I'm Eve, Lore Master Eve on Twitter and Twitch sometimes. And it's Canada Day. So wish me happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day, eh?
Wave your maple syrup and put flags on your. Wait. That's.
You run around with
really-
a Canadian
good.
flag like a cape around your
I
house. on
enjoyed
Canada
that.
Day.
Captain
As soon as we're
Canada!
As soon as we're done recording, I'm going to take my kids out to watch the fireworks. So that'll be fun.
Is Canada Day July 1st
There's no
or June
recovery
30th?
from that joke.
It is July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, but we have like the long weekend, so we've been doing parades and fireworks and things all through the week, and kids' fun stuff, bouncy castles and face painting, and
Bouncy castles.
yes, food trucks everywhere.
Sounds good.
So yeah, it's been
Stop
a
making
ton
me
of fun.
hungry.
Well, in July holidays, also in the U.S., we have the 4th will be July 1st, or sorry, will be July the 4th, Independence Day, and July 16th is actually Umi Day, or Sea Day in Japan. So we have that Monday off. I don't know why they have it, to be honest, but it's great to have a day of work. Yeah. Okay. If you guys want to find me, I'm at the tag Not Rob. I actually posted a picture and a video this week on my Instagram at Not Rob, and I have a brand new D20 for our Dungeons and Dragons group with a companion cube for all my Portal boys and girls out there. Special shout out to my D&D group, Steven Sensei, for joining our new group, and we had a hilarious session last night, let me tell you, and it was just so fun. But more on that later. I have a feeling that Carrie and I might end up doing a little bit more of like, not a live listening, but more of like what happened recap type thing. And I might be doing that on Concept Craft just because I feel like it. It's like the one outlet I can post stuff. And if you guys like Overwatch, you can head over to omniclab.com and you can listen to that. We had a game night that lasted way too long and was a lot of fun, and there's a brand new Overwatch hero we'll be talking about next week. But this last week we had a special streamer, Velen, on for Mercy. We'll see you guys next week, and remember, not all who wander are lost. We'll see you on the flippity flap. Bring your bubblies, bring your yummies, and don't forget your maple syrup. I'm not playing the outro because of YouTube, and it's way too long. So if you guys are in the stream, thanks for tuning in. Hippie Druid, thanks for coming in. Even if you're late, we still appreciate it, especially when you drop the Murlocs in the chat. Very nice.
Loving them Murlocs.
I wish there was a way in game. You know how you can read the flavor text, that you could like click on it and then it would play its battle cry.
Yeah, it does it if you craft it.
Right, when you craft it.
And
it
So
disenchant
if you just
and
want
undo
to
it.
craft
you craft it and disenchant it right away.
I've done that before.
I do that
before.
every set, actually. I craft a bunch of golden cards when a new set launches. Because I have like 3,200 dust. You'll craft it, hear the sound, look at the card, hit undo. And I just go through the whole set and do that. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to do that because there's a couple ones that I want to know what their battle cry is so we can have some new things to make Rob say.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to
Rob's
close the
really
stream
good
before this
apparently
gets
at doing
too far,
kobolds.
guys. We'll see you guys next week. Bye, YouTube. Bye, Twitch.
Hippie, like mushroom eating kobolds, man.